Imagine waking up one morning to discover that one of the country's most iconic institutions is in crisis, that the BBC, once trusted by millions, is now being questioned on every level. And you have to ask yourself, who is responsible? Who should you trust? And how did we get here? For decades, the BBC has stood as a symbol of impartiality. But today, critics across the political spectrum argue that it has drifted into something far narrower and more partisan than the public ever intended. Can a publicly funded broadcaster survive when trust is falling and political scrutiny is relentless? Nigel Farage has made his stance clear. He believes the BBC's funding model is unsustainable, that the license fee is no longer appropriate in a digital world, and that the corporation should focus purely on news and the world service, should entertainment, sport, drama, or other programming even exist under the same umbrella. Should a broadcaster really have the power to compel every household to pay for content they may not trust? And what would a reformed BBC look like? The controversy over Panorama deepened the debate. Why was footage edited to exaggerate Donald Trump's role in the Capitol riots? Why were key moments moved? How could such errors occur at an institution supposedly committed to impartiality? And were these mistakes accidental or evidence of a deeper cultural problem? Resignations at the top of the BBC only added to the uncertainty. If senior executives felt compelled to step down, what does that tell us about the organization's internal standards? And how can viewers trust a broadcaster that repeatedly finds itself defending its own editorial decisions? Further scrutiny came when the BBC commissioned a critic of Trump to deliver its prestigious Reith Lectures. Why choose someone so openly partisan? Does this represent diversity of thought or reinforce the perception that certain political views are prioritized? And how does this affect the public's perception of neutrality? The White House reacted sharply, calling the lecturer anti-Trump, and Trump threatened legal action worth billions. When did the BBC last face such direct scrutiny from an international leader? And what does that say about its global reputation? Back in the UK, the government is preparing to review the Royal Charter. Should the BBC's role be rewritten entirely? Is the license fee justified? And will reform survive parliamentary scrutiny? Or is a fundamental overhaul inevitable? Farage insists the BBC should stick to news and the world service, but is narrowing its remit so drastically realistic? And what does it mean for British culture? What happens to the programs and content people grew up with, or the sports and drama that form shared experiences across the country? Critics argue that the problem is not just errors, but worldview. A London-centric academic progressive bubble, disconnected from older working-class communities in the Midlands and North. How did this gap emerge, and can it ever be bridged? If whole regions feel unrepresented, what does this mean for trust in national institutions? Can a broadcaster bring the country together when many feel alienated? And what would rebuilding trust require? Transparency, new leadership, or a complete cultural shift? The BBC's coverage during Brexit only heightened tensions. Did it fail to represent Leave voters fairly? And does this explain why many feel misunderstood today? Is this loss of trust repairable or permanent? Every controversy, Gaza, Trump, gender identity, exposes the same fault line. Supporters see technical errors. Critics see ideology. So which perspective reflects reality? And how long can the BBC insist on good intentions while the public demands accountability? Some propose abolition, others protection, but a growing number advocate choice. Voluntary subscriptions. Should viewers decide what they pay for? Will this strengthen the BBC by making it responsive, or weaken it, turning a national institution into a niche service? And who truly benefits from such changes? Across towns and regions, the question is simple. Does the BBC still represent us? And if not, should we continue to fund it? Whether the answer is reform, renewal, or restructuring, one thing is certain. The debate will shape British broadcasting for decades to come. So as we look to the future, the real question is this: what kind of public broadcaster do we want? One that continues as it is, one that adapts fully, or one that competes without guaranteed income? And will this unite the nation or push it further apart? Ultimately, this is bigger than politics, bigger than personalities, bigger than any single scandal. It's about trust, identity, and how Britain tells its own story. And the question that matters most is the one only the public can answer. What should the BBC be in the years ahead, and who should it serve? Sources: The Telegraph reporting on Nigel Farage, BBC license fee Panorama controversy. Marco Longhi commentary. Mail on Sunday coverage of Rutger Bregman comments. BBC News reporting on internal resignations and Panorama investigation.